Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of TBR. I'm George Binns, and if you watched a couple of the shows, you've noticed at the end I make a broad invitation that if you have something to say and you want the room here at the table, we will make room for you. And this is the third time that we've had Margo Jones to come and talk with us at her instigation, no less. I like that word. Anyway, so this is going to be Constitution 101, Part 3. And I guess what started this off is the Supreme Court, at the end of the season, did their usual thing of dumping all their decisions, and they went off on vacation. And the list of them includes the immigrants who missed the hearing, lose their deportation battle. That's one of them. And the Supreme Court curbed the power of the federal regulators, overturning a 40-year precedent on who can make decisions. And they also ruled that emergency abortions can resume in Idaho. And the one that really got your interest again, Margo, is the Supreme Court says Trump can be tried for private acts. But you were more interested in the fact that he's immune from presidential acts.
I did not understand there was a separation between what he could do as a president or just what he could do because he was declared immune.
Yes.
And you have put it in terms of presidential acts or, well, let's put it the way a news person did. He said, well, that gives the president the right to say, I'll declare immunity if you give me $1 million. And to me, if the president is immune to, I didn't recognize there was a separation of presidential acts as a part from personal things. He was doing that in the position of a president to be able to declare somebody innocent. And it has given me room to expand my concept of what it is that President Biden had said. This declaration that a president has this immunity would, in general effects, destroy democracy.
Yeah.
And to me, this country has all kinds of guidelines to maintain that particular fact that we are a democracy, and other countries in the world look upon us as a leader in the democratic process. To me, the decision of the Supreme Court, in effect, denies that we have democracy. So I turned to George to find out what in the world could we do. But I'm going to start my conversation in the term of our present President Biden. When he came into office, there were some things that I find caused his presidency to become a state of turmoil. One was the wall being closed and stopped being built,
Yeah.
and the border being opened. I think he was imagining that maybe a few hundred people would be coming over, but no. By the thousands a day to maybe 15,000 a week. And what were we going to do with these people? But there was another issue that I became concerned with, and that was the closing of the gas line from Alaska.
Yeah,
And that put the prices up in gas.
the Keystone Pipeline.
And who benefited by it? All of the oil companies. Prices went up for lack of supply. And that was something that this country has to figure out what to do, because just recently the number of cars on the road far exceeds what just 4 years ago were on the road.
Yeah.
So that is, again, a second issue that put the money in the pockets of the guys who already had the money in their pockets and took the money out of the people's pockets. The third item that I found that should not have been just declared, it should have had all kinds of exceptions to it, and that was minimum wage. Minimum wage, if you're a member of the upper class and you are bringing home a good salary and you're already over the minimum wage, that didn't affect you at all. But just to say everybody is going to have $15 an hour, and there were no exceptions made. If you lived in Portland, Maine, you would have seen how many small businesses went out because at $10, a small business could support having 3 people as well as the owner. One would be a stock man.
Yeah.
A second would be a clerk, and the third would be a clerk for the additional hours. All right, at $10, we have 40 week hours. That would be $1,200 that the business had to bring in to pay for those 3 people. All right, we have now increased it 50% up to $15.
Yeah.
And that makes 3 people now not at $1,200, but at $1,800.
Yeah.
And these small businesses could not afford, because they did not have that. There was no allowance for people to continue with their businesses with that minimum wage set. The really crowning objection I have is minimum wage for a babysitter. A couple is going out at night to have dinner and an evening of theater, let's say 6 hours. They come home and they have a bill of $90 for that babysitter, because the minimum wage says everybody is entitled to it. They made no exceptions. And I think if that could be corrected to the point where small businesses could again be able to maintain those that make so much money, they make more than $15, so that's not to be worried about. But on the low end, it did not solve the problem. The people on the low income are not getting paid because there's no job where they had been in
you can't afford to have the 3 people working for you at $15 an hour that you could when they were paying them $10 an hour. So somebody gets laid off.
So the fact that so many businesses, and I have to admit that the one company that I really didn't want to see go out of business was the fellow who had the eyeglass cleaner that was, so exceptional. And I called for a refill because it was no longer available in the store. And he says, "We can't afford to do it. I'm out of business."
Yeah.
That struck me as something that is well not understood by the populace as to why inflation has been skyrocketing in the last 4 years. So that was the third particular piece that was the
Biden administration.
The Biden administration.
Yeah.
And
well, basically, you get down to a situation where things have happened, and I don't think people really recognize what's going on. and what the implications of it are.
Right.
And,
but to say just everybody is entitled where there are certain things that they did not consider in the populace of the country.
Yeah. Well, this is one of my favorites that way back when I graduated from high school in 1955. I got a summer job toasting hot dogs and selling popcorn. And I got paid 90 cents an hour. And at that time, minimum wage was 75 cents an hour. So I was doing pretty well. And I made enough money on that summer, put aside, saved enough money, I could pay for a semester of college. Fine. Now, if you take that 90 cents an hour and you escalate the $1955 up into a $2024, it's more like $12. So that 90 cents an hour job is now probably should be paying a little over $10 an hour. And yet that's the same level of skills to work behind the counter at McDonald's or Mickey D's or pick any one you like. So I think what people don't recognize, way back when, that kind of a job was for kids out of school that wanted to pick up some small change. Now they're trying to say, well, that kind of a job is the kind that, oh, you should be able to raise a family on. And they throw out these magic words of, oh, you got to have a living wage. I was living in my parents' house. I think this is part of the problem that keeps coming in. But to get back to our original discussion about what's going on with the Supreme Court and what are the implications of it.
Well,
because we started with this discussion 3 sessions ago with the concern that Trump's name was being taken off the ballot. Mm-hmm. And we got into 14.3 of the Constitution that says, well, you can do it for certain reasons but not others. And we got into 2 issues. One is couldn't do it because it's a prerogative of the Congress, not an individual state. And then the real issue comes in of what's this going to do if some states can, in fact, take somebody's name off the ballot because they don't like them, and other states don't. It totally upsets the system. So although it's not specifically written into the Constitution that every state has to have every candidate's name on the list, from a practical sense and from a democratic sense, everybody should have the opportunity to vote for who's ever running.
Right.
So I think this is one of the underlying issues of all of this discussion of, yeah, the Constitution doesn't say everything. Every T is not crossed, every I is not dotted, but there are implications in there of how do you make the system work?
But they are very specific, and we'll get to that just as soon as I put one little thing in here. We talked about the border being open.
Yeah.
All right. And I want to end Biden's term of office in what just happened recently, because he has been trying desperately to make Congress become a part of the decisions that have been made for our country. Mm-hmm. And finally, a decision was reached in the Senate that would be, for them, acceptable to control some of the issues of the border.
Yeah.
And when it went before the House, Mr. T told all Republicans to veto it.
Yeah.
And that power outside of the Congress is, in my mind, detrimental to a democracy. That one person can overturn what should be the workings within a good community, the Congress.
Well, really what that says is the people in the Congress don't have a mind of their own.
There's another reason why the Congress people are apt to take the advice of Mr. T because they are only there for a 2-year term.
Yeah.
And as a result, if they don't have his support, their chances of reelection within a year or two.
Exactly. They want to ride on his coattails, as the phrase used to be, that when he gets in, they want to sneak in with him. And
Well-
as a part of the game, they need his endorsement. And we get into the whole issue of why is Trump so popular? How can he have this power? Nowhere in the Constitution does it say an ex-president has the authority to tell the Congress what to do. It's his moral authority, if you will, or amoral authority, whatever way you like it, that he can influence voters and he can influence people who need the voters, which is what he's doing, and he's doing a very effective job of it. You may not like what he's doing with it, but he makes it work.
Absolutely. And the recognition of why people in this country adore Mr. T. Please excuse my using of the term Mr. T because
Fine.
that's how I refer to him.
Okay.
And that is because he stands up, right or wrong, and voices opinion,
Yes.
where the rest of the Congress and all the other people don't. And in our day and age, if you listen to the programs on Instagram and on this, that, the other thing, there are so many misdirection things being told,
Yeah.
and people believe them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The mother of a friend of mine came over from a country and watched Fox, and her son could not convince her that this is the way the country works. That's just one of my own recognitions. And so I discovered that our population like him because he is and donkey wouldn't fit on here because there's only 3 spaces, so
Yeah.
I left that empty over
It's
there.
the other name for a donkey, yeah.
So they see in him the opposite
Well,
of what it is that the rest of the people are doing.
well, what we're looking at is actually a worldwide effect where the usual politicians are not getting much traction. And what's happening is the populists are coming out of the woodwork and they're making enough noise that they are starting to get to be the ones that run in the countries. France is in the middle of this right now. Marie Le Pen is a populist, and her party is doing marvelous in the elections that they're having. The gentleman has taken over the presidency of the EU on this 6-month rotation is another populist, the president of Hungary. The president of Poland is a populist. So you're seeing them all around. So it's no different that we have one. And really what the populists on the right are doing, which is Mr. T, you like, he's appealing to an impression that the voters have that they've been let down by the smooth-talking politicians. So they tend to listen to somebody that tells them, hey, that's what I'm seeing, and that's what it needs to be done. And he's telling them what he's going to do. And when he was in, he did a lot of what he was going to do. He started up the Keystone Pipeline as one of the things that he did. And that's part of his attraction.
The realization that people misunderstand his intentions because I don't understand his intentions.
Yeah.
And when he can coerce a decision from the Supreme Court to give him immunity, and as you said, about
Pre-
federal
Presidential actions.
presidential
That's
acts.
the magic words.
All right. So if he does something all on his own, like I had mentioned to you, that
Your example of selling a bribe
selling a bribe. Okay.
or selling of an immunity.
In other words, there was a reporter who said, well, if we give him immunity, he'll just say to somebody, I'll give you a pardon if
Yeah,
you'll give me $1 million.
yeah,
And that didn't strike me as out of the bounds of what immunity was,
yeah,
but you've pointed out that that would be a personal
yeah.
thing. And I,
Well, you look at most of the Congress and the Senate, most of their time is trying to raise campaign funds, and what they do is they get campaign funds for supporting different companies, hometown. Now, the whole concept of bringing home the bacon.
okay. That brings up something that I have been, had read, and there's a citizens union and a something union, one of which has been in existence for quite a while, that was able to overturn the limit anyone could spend on a political candidate.
Yeah,
All right, so it's, I have forgotten which is which, and sorry, I have it all in there, but it's not all ground in my head here. The number of finances to support candidates in the 2022 election was $8.7 billion. And that did not include dark money at $2 billion.
yeah,
And we have people who are saying, our country can't afford to send supplies to another country that is trying to maintain democracy because we don't have the money. Who and what has all this money that they are putting it to the candidates? And if people are disheartened about our things, it's the people who are spending the money to get who they want into office that make it a problem.
Yeah.
The money is there for who they want.
yeah.
And the people are seeing this happen, and they have no control about reversing it.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I still thought
that's
there
what
was a limit.
but that's what a democracy is. A bunch of people making a decision. And how do you get a bunch of people to make a decision and not to have a bunch of decisions? You've got to have something to convince them that I'm the guy that can make things happen for you.
Right.
And
But-
therefore, because I'm going to make things happen for you, you got to help me get elected.
It's almost...
It's a quid pro quo.
Yeah. That's blackmail, but that's... Yeah, I like your expression better.
Call it anything you want. That's the way the system works.
Yeah.
And you get down to the situation that the way the system has been working for a while isn't satisfactory to a bunch of people. For instance, this whole issue about a living wage and the $15 an hour minimum wage and all of that. It's something that has crept through into the system and has gotten to the point where it's worse. And now all of a sudden, somebody comes along and says, I know how to fix it. Just get me elected. And lo and behold, we have you're Mr. T, not the guy with the gold necklace anymore. And that was another Mr. T. But you get down to the situation, okay, this is the way a democracy works. And how do you change it? is a very valid question. And I wish I had the answer, and then I would be much smarter than I am. But it comes down to this is where we've gotten ourselves to right now. And it gets really dicey when you start to get into some of the economics and the way the country is going, especially with running up the debt. And that gets into another situation where in order to satisfy the hometown people, you got to spend money. Well, we don't have it, we'll borrow it. Well, we don't really borrow money, we just make it. Well, we don't really make it anymore. Somebody down in Washington hits a few keys on the keyboard, and the money magically appears in somebody's bank account. So there are a lot of issues that get thrashed at. And
We have become a society of those that have, those that work, and those that don't have anything.
yeah,
I have just been through, I can't say that I read every page because I am not a reader anymore because of my eyes, but the two income trap that started with the women's rights back in the 60s.
Yeah.
Two people now taking home two wages, and that became the excuse of businesses to charge more, that there were more money in a family.
yeah, they're
Okay.
willing to buy more things.
So that also brought about the grandmother issue, that as the years went on, grandmother now was working to keep and support her family,
Yeah,
and there was nobody to tend the children
so we get
That-
the daycare and all the
to
rest
take
of that.
care of and to educate them of family ways.
Well, now we're getting to a point where you brought up another issue that really deserves another show. So when you're coming back from vacation, seriously, we ought to get together and continue this discussion along those lines.
Oh, we're,
Yeah,
we're
we're-
running out of time.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, and we don't have time to find out, can people do anything like put something on the ballot that will say, we do not give immunity?
People-
Because it says here in Abraham Lincoln's statement, all men are created equal.
Yeah,
And it also states that government is by the people, of the people,
Of the
for
peop-
the people, and by the people. And because of
says-
that, we as people, the
Shall not-
populace,
yeah.
should be able to
well,
get the Supreme Court into a position where they cannot do what they have done.
okay,
If that ends the program, at least I got to say it.
okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. And as you can see, this can get to be a very lively discussion. And if you would like to have your 2 cents worth, we can make room for here at the table because we did it again. And stay tuned.